Okay, let's get going. Anybody have any luck on the patent stuff and any further updates on that?
All week I've just been trying to, like last week I'd run just like a baseline version, and then I wanted to add in the anchor context pairs thing, but all week I've been trying to get it to work, but without any luck. So can you see my screen here?
Yes.
Yeah, so I can't get my tabs. Yeah, so like I trained the model okay, and like then this is like trying to do the inference on it. So yeah, like I build up like the text string, well, normally like using this one here. So yeah, so it sticks like an anchor and a target, and then the context on, like that's what I had previously. And then this is like where it groups the targets together from each anchor context pair and sticks them on the end. But for whatever reason, when I do it in the test, so it's not actually in my model. I've taken it out, so at the minute in the model it's just running without it, and yeah, so that runs okay. But just when I have just like this little piece of code here, the test data set, which all it does is you tokenizes it. So like I make the sentence and then just loop through each member of the test set. And so like when I have this with the target GP stuck on, it crashes the notebook, but because of the fact it's like internet off and you can't see what causes the crash. So I'm just running another one at the minute. Oh, so yeah, so that's just crashed as well. So you can see here, it's like all week I've just had hundreds and hundreds of errors, and yeah, like so it just like says no details provided. And so yeah, I've just been struggling to try and find what's wrong with this. So it's something to do with, yeah, so if I chop this bit off, so as I just have the standard sentence as before, then it works okay. And as I say, all this is doing is it just goes in, it does like the tokenization, and it seems when the context is on, it throws an exception, but I don't know. I don't know if anybody else would know. It's like, is it in the test set, there may be words that the tokenizer wasn't trained on. So I'm not sure what tokenizers do if they come across a word they haven't seen during their setup. But
did you you're trying it with one particular model, right? Like Liberta or whatever. Did you try changing it, because then the tokenizer changes too, and maybe another tokenizer would be able to handle it? Have you tried that?
no, I haven't, because yeah, so like the model, yeah, it was a Liberta one, so I trained it. It trained okay, so I just assumed I had to use the same tokenizer again to get the tokens back
No,
at
I'm
inference
saying
time.
if
But
you completely change the model to like sentence BERT, or I mean, if it has to do with a tokenizer and a different tokenizer, which means you would have to use a different model. So that's why I was wondering if you had tried it with a different model. And it still leaves the question open of what is wrong with this particular tokenizer that it would fail on.
yeah,
and at least going through, because this NLP with transformer course, I kind of started reading through some chapters, and the first one is, or I don't know, maybe the second chapter is text classification, which essentially is what we are doing here. And it basically seems that the tokenizer, depending on, it can do, it uses different techniques, and it builds up the words that it hasn't seen is the most common one, but haven't looked at divert or large or whatever the model you're using specifically to see what that particular tokenizer would do. But in general, tokenizers should be able to handle unseen words because they kind of either do an unc or they build it up from pieces.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. So I thought it would be okay. And plus as well, I've got like this truncation on. So I thought that like even if my text was massive, the truncation would chop it off. So I even tried like.
Does it work for your local validation set?
Yeah. So like it works fine during training, and it works okay. Yeah. So this is just a test function. So like I'm not actually using this sentence in the actual inference model at the minute. So all this is doing is creating like this test text and then sticking it through the tokenizer. And so like if I use the training set here, it's absolutely fine, but it's just it works okay with the.
What happens when the test truncated target GP is none and you add that to a string? Does that give you an error?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I just like started trying this 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
Previously I was either adding all of this or none of it. And yeah, so if I add none of this, if I don't have this on the end of my sentence, it goes through okay. And then as soon as this test one, as soon as I add this in, then it fails. And so yeah, I've just tried this one here, which is the truncated one, which uses this just to basically cut it down to one word, because I was wondering, was it because it was too long? But anyway,
do you use group by to get truncated targets GP?
Yeah. But yeah, so that's up here. Yeah, so like it's like loaded the training and the test sets in. Yeah, so yeah, that's the one thing. It's like grouping, I guess, the context anchors from the training set, and then it uses the ones it's got from the training set, the grouped ones, but I'm adding those onto the test set.
So you haven't repeated the group by step on the test CSV?
No, I haven't. So yeah, perhaps I should do that.
Because I think that's what's done like in those solutions.
Right.
It's to ensure that you in case there are anchor and target pairs that only exist in the training set.
Yeah. I'll give that a try then and see if that fix it. But yeah, it's been very frustrating all week because.
Well, to be honest, I've just kind of left that competition.
Yeah.
I haven't really tried anything.
The reason I was pursuing it was because of, like I just wanted to see how much of a difference it would make to my solution, because I was never able to break the 8.5 barrier or whatever during the competition. So I was wondering, would that get me through it? And then, like I'd also been reading the thing about the AWP, the weight perturbation thing. So I'd wanted to move on to that, but because of the fact I got stuck in this, I never did. So yeah, it's just wanting to see sort of how much of a boost those type of things would give to my solution, because it sort of got a bit stuck.
Quick question, Steve. I haven't looked at the AWP. I need to watch the video and get on it. But question for you, is that independent of, I assume that's independent of the first part that you're trying to do of combining or grouping stuff, right? So you could implement just the weight perturbation with even the simple training that we had, and see how much that alone gives, whether that alone gives you an input.
Yeah, so I actually have a notebook that does the AWP, but I just got stuck in this other thing, so I never got around to trying it yet. But yeah, so the guy that finished first, he has released his entire code base, like his whole sort of GitHub library. So I've stolen his AWP implementation. So I have the notebook ready to go. I just haven't tried it yet.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Yeah, I would definitely want to look at that and try it, because that seems like a generic technique useful in many instances, right?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, you'd think you'd be able to use that in any competition to give yourself a boost, any classification competition.
Right, especially even video or images, and I remember Arto saying it actually came in from vision into NLP. So if the implementation he has is generic enough, then that should be applicable to vision competitions as well.
Yeah, certainly like that video I posted last week, the Ian Goodfellow, is it? Yeah, he was applying it, or it was all about images in that case. But yeah, like as Ardo said, I think a lot of people now have used it on NLP stuff.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't somehow gone into it. Maybe this week I'll spend some time on. Given your struggles, I'll probably try AWP first and then switch to this other thing. Are there any notebooks that also have implemented the grouping strategy and are actually running to where, as you say, it's kind of frustrating because you can't debug? But is there any reference or notebook that you could run to compare what they are doing, which seems to work?
I haven't really found one. Yeah, so like the grouping mechanism that I was using, it came from the 10th place solution, I think it is. But they just put sort of snippets of their code up to say about doing the grouping, but they didn't actually put their whole notebook up. So unfortunately, I can't see exactly what they've done. And then the guy that finished first, he put all his code up, but his code, it's not a notebook really. It's like Python files mostly. And I think he's used a slightly different strategy or whatever, and because he's using Python files, it made it more awkward. But
yeah, so it's a script.
Yeah. So I haven't actually just like seen a simple notebook that has it yet.
How do you use scripts instead of notebooks? I've never tried that. I've seen it as an option. Is it very different to run this?
Well, if you had like internet access, it's easy enough. You can just put like a link in and pull all your code in into your notebook from GitHub or whatever. In this case, because of the fact the internet's turned off, you would have to create like a data set with your Python files in it and then use them like that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I normally git pull from my Git repo into a Kaggle notebook.
Yeah.
I've also noticed that you can create Kaggle scripts. And I assume like they are different from Kaggle notebooks.
I think so. I've never used those.
Okay.
Okay. Now, with respect to any future competitions, again, we kind of looked at. Jack, did you want to share something?
Well, not exactly. I mean, all the available competitions are like, I mean, they can be seen like on the website. So it's,
the Mayo Clinic one that you pointed to is something that's just launched. The one, let me see whether I can share. At least let me know if you can see my screen.
Oh, yeah, I can see, yeah.
Okay, so these are the ones we were looking at last week as well, some of the top ones. And, Steve, you mentioned you'd be gone most of August.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. So the effective argument one ends August 23rd. So, in general, my thinking is as follows, and let me know, feedback. We could do one of two things, I feel. One is, participate in this one, the feedback price one, and that will give you about 3 weeks if you choose to participate in it. And then, August 1st to 23rd, those 3 weeks, you'll probably not be there. So, but it ends on August 23rd. So by the time you're back, we'll, then be able to choose a new one, because this is between now and third week of August. The end date when you have to submit is August 23rd. Of course, the other choice is to choose one of these guys, the vision ones, if you will. Those have, and obviously the Mayo Clinic one has just shown up, but one of my concerns about the Mayo Clinic one, I just glanced at the data size and it's like 500 gig or something.
Really?
Yeah. Well, 400 gig.
Right.
Right.
So,
And I was like, maybe not.
but I guess someone will prepare like a more user-friendly version.
Yeah.
Because I think the images are in tips, right? So
yes. So that's a possibility, but generally, again, unless it shrinks substantially, you would need to kind of work with it. And if you do anything on Colab, and then, the other thing with the frustrating thing about these things is it just makes people who have their own data or computer and, custom hardware so much easier for them to do it, that it just becomes more of a frustrating effort to participate in these. So that's one reason that I was thinking, even if we choose one of these, that it would, unless the other, unless the Mayo Clinic one quickly evolves into, oh, here's somebody who has, and I haven't looked at it in detail to see whether that's even a possibility, that somebody would just kind of like compress it or provide something which makes it equivalent to compete with a lot less data. Because again, if it is just a matter of, oh, here's a snippet of the data, but it's not the real data, so then, you can get a score, but it's nowhere near what others would be getting, then that doesn't make it interesting. And on the other hand, this guy is only about, this is large too, but by comparison to the others, it's only about 10 gig. And of course, text competitions typically are much smaller. So if we choose to do the feedback prize and continue with one more NLP competition before we switch, and I haven't really done, most of the NLP ones that we have participated in seem to also be only text classification, whereas this seems to have a little bit of a different twist to it. And combined with the NLP for transformers, that class on Sundays or whatever, I thought, it would be interesting to kind of apply maybe, or get into applying a couple of different techniques. I'm imagining this is what they typically call neural inference or something, because you're supposed to predict whether the argument is effective, which would mean you would need to understand, or the model would need to understand something about and the arguments presented rather than just the classification. So it's a little bit harder, but obviously it would still be using Hugging Face and NLP models, but just for a different task.
Do you think that's why this competition is more popular than the AI for code competition? Because I've noticed like most people like converging towards the feedback competition rather than the AI for code competition. And in fact, like I've noticed one of the top NLP competitors, he was doing the AI for code competition, and then he just sort of made public his solution to that, and then say that, oh, he will not have time for that, and he's moved on to the feedback competition.
And what is the reason, Jack? What is the reason he gave or something?
Oh, he just says like he will not have time for the AI for code competition, but he's now like doing the feedback competition.
I see. Actually, I found the AI for code. I just glanced at again. I wanted to understand what it is about, and it's an interesting one too. Unfortunately, we are a little time compressed for it. Otherwise, I would have loved to have done this one. Interestingly, what this one is, it's one of these where the competition continues after the deadline date as well. It's much like the tabular competition that Steve, Jack, and I were participating in before the NLP one, in that it continues after the submission deadline for a couple of months. And actually, I just glanced at a little bit of the detail, and it's fascinating because basically what it does is it includes, or what you are trying to do in the competition is, you have these cells in the notebook, right? Like you have code for the cells and you have the markdown cells. And the competition basically is they have the cells jumbled up, and you are supposed to predict, as I understand it, the sequence of cells correctly, so that the markdown cells and the code cells are next to each other, that are relevant to each other. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked at that competition. I thought, yeah, like it sounded really interesting, but as you say, it's just a shame it's a bit late. We sort of missed so much of it.
Yeah.
It'd be hard to jump into it now.
Jump in now and make any progress and or get decent results. And then the other thing, which is the even more frustrating, is we'll be only part of the way there, and then for another 2 months you wouldn't see any updates, because you'd see updates of results but not any actual results published, because they're still conducting evaluation.
Yeah.
So
do you know if there's a term for the NLP task in this competition, like how in the other it's called, you mentioned that it's called neural inference? Is there like a
I don't know. Don't know how or what techniques or what would it fall under in this case, which is part of the reason that it's fascinating, is because what kind of things would you use in order to determine ordering? It doesn't automatically fit into any one neat category like classification or there could be, again, I'm assuming there would have to be some inference, but there could also be, you have to extract from the code some similarity or distance between that code fragment and the corresponding markup text fragment. Because obviously the markup text says what you're going to be doing or commenting on what you're doing in the code. So that's how you would match up. So I imagine it would be, but I don't know. I haven't looked at any of the discussions or whatever as to how, but it would, I think, again, be some sort of similarity or distance or something like that, right? Between what the code is and what the comments or the markup text is relating to that piece of code.
Okay.
Excuse me. So I was thinking, we have two choices. We can either jump directly to the human body one, or we can kind of spend time between now and end of August. And unfortunately, Steve would only have 3 weeks. He would still have the rest of July, Steve, for the feedback prize if you choose to, if we go that route, or we can flip that and go off to the human body one.
Yeah, like given that we've started that NLP with Transformers book and whatever, I'd be happy to sort of stick with a Transformer and an NLP model competition. So I'd be happy to try the feedback prize one in the few weeks I've got, but like obviously, if other people are wanting different competitions, then you're all going to be here, so don't let me be in a way sort of sway you.
Yeah, no, my vote is also to stick with one more NLP before we flip, and timing kind of works out, because by the time you're back, then we would have a choice of whatever else, if this is still open, or who knows, by that time, Mayo Clinic might be smaller data, and some new competitions might have shown up and so on. So my vote is also, let's do the feedback prize, one more NLP before we split, but I'm open to hearing. So anybody else have any strong thoughts one way or the other?
I'm happy.
So what do you think, Jack? You okay with doing one more NLP?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm happy to tag along to any competition. So, I don't know if others have any comments.
Terence, Fury, have any preferences?
No references, but I would like another NLP as well.
Okay, so given that, let's just maybe converge on the feedback price one, the next until August 23rd then. And that's not a whole lot of weeks. It's about 6 weeks, so it'll be a fairly quick turnaround.
Oh, I want to ask Terence, did you get kicked out of the US patent competition like Steve?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, I was like saying last week, Terence, at the start of the US patent competition, I shared one of my notebooks with you.
Yeah.
But like I privately shared it, and I noticed that after the competition finished, I've been in the leaderboard all the time, and then like last week I went looking for my position in the leaderboard again, and I disappeared. It turned out I'd been kicked out of the competition, but
that sucks.
Well, it didn't really suck because of the fact that I'd done so badly. It was quite good because it means that one doesn't show up in my list of competitions.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I'd have been unhappy if I'd got a gold medal or something, but lucky I didn't get any medals at all. So
maybe that's why I was just looking at the competitions to see the ones that I was in, and it doesn't show up. So maybe that's what happened to me too.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happened to you. Yeah, because I shared that with you privately. Both of us have been thrown out.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, have to remember next time.
Can't do that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man.
Oh, no worries at all. Yeah. So as I say, because it
clarifies things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I had no idea. I wouldn't have even asked. Wow. Even a private sheet.
No, actually, the thing we discussed, Terence, was if he had posted on Slack rather than shared privately on Kaggle itself, then it wouldn't have mattered.
I see.
Yeah, so like they obviously run some program at the end of the competition to see if anybody's privately shared code from that competition with somebody else who isn't in their team.
I see.
And then kicks them out. So yeah, I'll know next time.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that they have an enforcement mechanism for that, right? Because Um,
Oh,
that's
I mean,
pretty
I get it,
impressive
but
that
that's
they,
kind of interesting that they would actually look at private. I mean, that's a private communication between the two of us. So that means it's completely open. They're looking at everything. Wow.
yeah.
Well, they do say that in the competition rules. They do
Okay.
say no private sharing of code.
I
Uh,
see.
And I always wondered how they enforced it. And now I know they
Not
just they just look at it.
Actually, they one thing I do know, I didn't know they did this, but I did know they checked for private data usage. You know, sometimes they allow external data usage and
Yeah.
sometimes they don't. And I've seen people, you know, this not complain, but explain that they were kicked out because somewhere in their notebook they used data that they were not supposed to.
Mm.
I've seen that. I've seen posts which say, oops, I did this stupid thing when I was trying something, and then I never went back to my notebook and removed it, and it never really helped. But look, I'm out because I used that little bit of data that, that when they, you know, because some competitions prevent external data usage, and I knew they ran scripts to check that. I don't know how, again, because, you know, do they look for specific instruction or, you know, what? But because it's easier to catch sharing of data on the platform. But I think it's harder to kind of look into your code and figure out that you are using data that you're not supposed to be using. But I've seen people say that they were kicked out because of that, and they were kicking themselves going, oh, geez, that really didn't matter, and I did it on an earlier version, and I never went back and went through all my code, and geez, I just got kicked. So
I guess
seem
what
to
would be
be pretty,
useful is like a reminder before the merger deadline that you have some private shares. Would you like to merge before the? I mean, do you like to
yeah,
team up with this person? So yeah.
that's true if they're doing it. But then, you know, probably to Steve's point, they don't run it at that point. They probably run it only when you submit.
Okay. Yeah.
Right, because they may not care to run. I mean, I'm sure it takes them a lot of compute on the back end to run all these checks, but they probably don't run it at merge time, but they run it at when you hit submit, then they go and make sure that the rules are all compliant. And I think they probably got a whole lot stricter after, you know, a couple of these very publicized cheating scandals where I think, Steve, you recall you had mentioned, and I read it too, like in the pets competition or pet adoption competition or something, somebody had embedded code from the result and thereby boosted his score and got the money and all that kind of stuff. And it was a big scandal, and they had to take away the money and suspend the guy from the platform and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, like he'd somehow sort of managed to scrape all the pictures of the cats and dogs or whatever it was off the internet and embed them in his code.
Yeah, it's pretty desperate if you're trying to win Kaggle competition that badly.
Yeah. I saw Yuri's just posted another competition, but
Yeah, what is
Yeah,
that?
so
Yuri?
we
You
actually,
wanted to say something?
yeah, so we at work we're actually going through graph neural network class, and somebody proposed doing this competition. They specifically, I guess they have a workshop for combining graph and NLP, and they picked that problem for it. So the second link kind of describes it better. Actually, I just started looking at the paper that they referenced. I think paper is even better description. What's on the paper? I thought about this because it's sort of a little bit similar to the competition you're thinking about, but it's a lot more complex. They're trying to do work in the field of automated theorem proving, and they are trying to find those supporting propositions for the theorems, which like I don't know. I've learned math before, but I don't know what they're like. I have to like. I'm reading definitions now to understand what they are, but I guess it's statements that help you prove the theorem, roughly speaking.
It seems like they're almost like seeking. Yeah, I agree with. At a broad term, I agree with what you said, that it's somewhat. I think the competition feedback one we participate in will probably be a simplified version of this, because this also seems to be, if you have a premise, then what would be the conclusion? And you can obviously think of it as having good reasoning behind your arguments, which is what the feedback one is. So this may be a lot more stricter, and now that you mention it, I don't know whether even in the feedback case, whether they use graph of any kind in conjunction with NLP. So yeah, I think this might be a little bit more advanced version of what we are already considering.
And also, I think you have to understand mathematical notations, so you have to do something to encode it. Or...
That's right. That's interesting. Yeah, actually, I don't know whether there is. Go ahead.
Yeah, I thought I'd share it because I think it's a lot of those like a workshop competitions are not interactive. They share a platform, and sometimes you see top scores, but that's about all. So it's not great for learning because you can't really interact with other people till the competition ends.
Yeah. Also, for some reason, they said, I don't know whether this is an ongoing thing, or because they say next eval on July 15th, which is a week from today.
No, I think that's when they publish evaluation set. It runs. Yeah, so they published test set. They started like a week ago or so.
I see. Yeah, they seem to say post competition is October, so I don't know whether it goes on till October. But yeah, the other interesting thing is, like you said, this one, at least your NLP model, which would be interesting to know separately, it, like you mentioned, one of the requisites would probably be that it, understand the math notation. So I'm just curious whether there are specific models that do that, or how they customize it for that mathematical notation language, because that's what you will need in order to be even able to conclude whether one set of statements forms the premise for the next, right? Because then you'd have to find relationship between statements, and if you can't grasp the statements, there's no way you're building relations between them.
So if we decide to work on it, then I guess I'll learn about it. But yeah, it seems difficult. But
yeah, I think in fact doing well on maybe the feedback one would be probably a prerequisite if it's still running, and if we think that's enough interest, then maybe we can give this one a shot. But it's interesting because it seems like in the direction, as you said, but much more complicated.
And does graph-based mean that you are no longer using transformers, or actually it's not, like you can use both or something?
I think you can use anything you want, but they think you need graph structure to understand like it's basically creating links in a sense. That's how they're looking at this automated theorem proving.
Okay.
But you can probably try like doing it without any graphs and just yeah. I was discussing it with Darren yesterday, and he said, "Well, can you just like maybe do like attention and see if that solves it?" So.
Interesting. Okay. But at least I'd like to do the feedback one and see whether we get anywhere on that one before even. It definitely seems interesting to keep an eye on whether there are some interesting overlaps between feedback one and this one. Let's go through it and see whether it's, something we can accomplish. If not, I would still tend to stick with the feedback one and see where the nice thing about this one at least is compared to some of the other ones that talked about, the data size is fairly, it's only 20 megabytes or even not even a fraction of gigabytes.
But there's like links to external information, right?
More on the annotation stuff and so on. I'm not sure whether it is for more data as much as for, scoring how they do, because I think there is manual, human readers have scored it, and we have to match this, right? Meaning, how good are we at matching what humans have ranked the arguments? If humans have ranked it as adequate and we say it's effective or vice versa, then that would obviously count against our models. It's like automated, you can think of this as an automated grading system that you're building.
Okay.
And the more it matches the human ranking, the better your code is.
Also, it looks like this is a second competition. They had some very similar competition last year.
Oh, really?
They don't refer to it directly, but when I did a search, it came up.
Actually, I don't know if you know one of the grandmasters, Dito, like they've shared like a video from NVIDIA Grandmaster series on the previous competition. Like, so I guess in that video they talk about what they did for that one, and thinking that it might be helpful for this one.
So do you have the link for it, Jack?
Well, I saw it in my feed homepage, so it must be there in the discussions.
I saw in the discussion there, you just went past it, trying to us about, if you go up a wee bit, it said about the chai time thing. Is that it?
This guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably chai. Yeah, could be.
Oh, this is on pattern phrase to phrase.
this one.
All right.
That may be interesting. I
Well,
don't
I
know
never
where the guy
did
ended
it
up, but
previously. Yeah, he normally finishes high, so. But it sounds like there's something special about Diverta, right? So just from the title of the post.
By the way, I don't know if you guys know, like I follow things Sam on I think on Twitter. I think he just left H2O. Didn't say where he's going.
oh, he has been with Weights and Biases for a while now.
Oh, yeah, Weights and Biases. Sorry, but yeah, he just left it because he was setting up sort of like he was setting up their program to do like an open source type of program to run. I wouldn't say competitions, but like run events. Because I think he was looking for like interesting data set at some point and like socially good data sets at some point.
Who are you talking about?
There was a link to Sanam Bhutani. He was participating in the bunch of classes a few
Oh,
years
the
ago.
host of Chai Times.
Yeah.
I think he hosts Chai Times. Yeah.
Yeah. He was in FastAI course before, and I think one of the NLP courses.
He also taught the courses that H2O did about 2 or 3 years ago. They had a series that went like almost 6 months.
Okay.
Wow, but he's left waiting by us already. Wow.
Yeah, he didn't seem to be there very long.
No, not at all.
Yeah, he was there for less than a year, I think.
Wow.
All right.
He just moved there several months back, from what I recall.
Did he say why he'd left? Sorry.
No, but it seemed to be very like positive kind of. Yeah. I don't know if he was like specifically joined them to do this program, like a outreach program. But yeah, I think they have events and I try to participate in them, but I don't know, I don't think
I joined few of their paper readings, and especially paper reading, which was interesting because at least that provided, some kind of discussion opportunity when you read papers. That is what he was supposed to take over from another guy who was at Weights and Biases called Aman Arora, who also was FastAI participant and has several very good posts on especially image-related neural networks processing. If you look at it, is several interesting posts of implementing by yourself various networks. The guy Aman Arora, and he stepped down from doing that, and Sanyam kind of took over the task and led a course on PyTorch basics and that kind of stuff, and was supposedly going to take over and run the weekly or bi-weekly paper readings, but it never became regular after Aman left and it kind of dissipated. So I don't know what came of it. And he was at H2O.ai for a while, and Sanyam was, and then he was at Weights and Biases. Now, he hasn't said where he's going next?
No.
Okay. And by the way, just for folks who may be interested, I think Jeremy has yet another updated version of his course that he is about to make public. I got invited to it because I've been in FastAI for a while, and so I kind of have access to, or have had access, although I haven't at the time, and I did just a couple of weeks back start going through his updated lectures. It's the same coverage of the books, but of the book material, whatever code friendly or the FastAI book. I forget the title of it now, but it's something for coders. But I think he has the FastAI library itself has been, I think, updated. Also, his current presentations of the course use a lot more of Kaggle notebooks and directly working on Kaggle. So he started posting some of the notebooks, much like we saw in the last competition. He posted, how to do the NLP stuff to kick it off with. Similarly, he has, I found out, multiple posts on the vision side as well. And FastAI is getting more and more integrated with Hugging Face spaces and stuff, which makes it pretty useful in that sense. But he's going to be making the course, the latest version of the course and the videos and stuff public. Currently, it's not accessible if you aren't invited, but should be in a week or two.
Okay, thanks.
Please let us know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, is it going to be much different from the previous course?
I've only gone, the material is the same. So I would say no, but two things I found interesting. I will continue to go through it and give you a update, but one is he does begin to touch on the integration with Hugging Face and Hugging Face spaces and things like that, which make it interesting because, for example, he, in his previous version of the course, he talks about productizing apps and he uses Grad.io and some kind of dedicated web hosting interface. But right now, you can do that. The backend, your model can just be put into, I think, Hugging Face spaces. And he uses Grad.io and Hugging Face spaces to create a full-fledged web app that you can just release to the world, which I thought was pretty cool. And that's like within the first 2 lectures.
Right.
So he builds a very simple, cat dog classifier that he uses Grad.io and Hugging Face spaces to just build a web app around that with very little typical Jeremy style, very little external code or stuff like that. And, you don't need to understand too much of the details. Of course, we all do, but I'm just saying for a newcomer, it's very enticing because you can build an entire app. And somebody else who had taken the previous version of the course built app to classify dishes from restaurant pictures, like what the food content is or what the food looks like, pasta or vegetables or blah, blah, blah. So.
Right.
But I didn't know about the Hugging Face spaces thing, which I thought was interesting. So anyway, as I go through it, if there are other interesting or relevant things, I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, they bought Gradio some time ago.
Who did?
Hugging Face.
Oh,
So
I
now,
didn't know that they were the same thing now. Oh, I thought Gradio was entity
yeah,
by
it's an
itself.
open. I think it's still probably there's still probably an open source version, but they bought it, and that's one of the 2 of their I guess you can still do Streamlit maybe there, but that's where they're.
Yeah, Streamlit is another option that he talks about, that you can also use Streamlit, and it's a little bit more involved. Gradeo is a little less flexible, but therefore, you know, simpler to interact with. And I had built a very simple, you know, planet classifier. If you give it images of planets, it will tell you whether it's Mars, Venus, or Earth or something. Sometime back, and I didn't know that you could use Hugging Faces to store the model and stuff. So I wanted to go back and play with it to see how quickly you can do that. Okay, I think at least right now I would say I'm strongly leaning towards just participating in the feedback prize. So let's kind of see whether we can work on it and make a submission or two before Steve takes off for his vacation. So you're going any particular place, Steve, or is it just a break?
I'm going to Rhodes, which is a Greek island, and then I'm going back to Ireland for a while.
Ah, cool. So the Colossus of Rhodes, eh?
Exactly, yes.
So any remnants of that stuff
Yeah.
still there, or?
Yeah, no, most of it's all still there.
Oh, wow.
The only thing is, yeah, this time of year it gets very, very hot, so it's a bit hot to walk about it. So I'm just going.
So
I'm
are
just
these
going to go and lie by
chunks
pool.
of marbles and is it huge chunks of marble lying around from the Colossus?
I'm not sure, because it's like when they did the Crusades, when like all the crusading knights were going off to Israel or whatever. Yeah, like they all stayed in Rhodes, and so like all of the Knights Templar temples are all still there and stuff.
Oh, wow. So it seems like a very historic, going back a long time in history kind of place. Huh?
Yeah, there's like loads of that stuff, but I'm just going to the swimming pool. And I'm just going to sit in the sun by the pool. So I'll not be bothered with any of that historical stuff.
I've been to Rhodes. I was passing through it, but I spent some time on the next island called Carpathos.
Right.
That's really cool. Still touristy, but a little bit less touristy.
Yeah, like that's the one thing about Rhodes. It has like, yeah, sort of really touristy bits. The bit I go to is a bit more quiet, but yeah, like it's amazing how many Greek islands there are. I've been to about sort of 6 or 7 of them, so you can get all different types.
Well, have a good one in some time, I guess.
Yeah, so I don't go until
all right, folks.
30th of July, so I'll be here for the next couple of weeks.
Sounds good. Okay, see you all next week, and let's see whether we can get somewhere on this feedback thing, and keep an eye on what you reposted as well to see whether we can, see how challenging that is and whether one can give us pointers on the other.
Okay, cool. Cheers. See you next week, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
See you all next week.